Do you need it? I have the original if you want to look at it.
I would like a copy.
Here you go. And then I'll have everybody sign who's here before. So don't leave without signing, please, if you do agree.
Are we on YouTube today?
Yeah.
Mic's on.
Are we YouTubing today?
We are. We're live.
We're live. Live from Lawrenceburg.
All right, we'll call the work session for May 29th, 2020 to order. Ms. Brookbank, can we get a roll call?
Executive Director Brian Messmore.
Present.
President Richard Richardson.
Present.
Vice President Lenny Fryman.
Present.
Secretary Kevin Schaefer.
Present.
Member April Fritsch is absent. Member Brian Johnson.
Present.
And School Board Member Brian Jansen is absent. And City Attorney Del Weldon.
Here. We ready to go?
Yeah. I'll turn it over to Brian.
All right, first of all, I appreciate you rearranging your schedules, making it here. Again, we're here to discuss the contract status with Proof 124, which is commonly known as the old firehouse. The original intent of calling the meeting with short notice was to help provide the owner and the restaurateur with confidence and confirmation that we've settled on these little issues because it's difficult for Darren to keep staff because they're looking for work, and the dates have been a little bit fluid lately, and it's been difficult. So otherwise, I would not have scheduled this until sometime next week. That was the reason for the urgency, just trying to help with his staffing issues. So that being said, we received this afternoon, and I'll let Mr. Weldon maybe add to my comment, but we received some edits this afternoon from their attorney. So in that process, we're not confident that everybody is aware of exactly what changes were made. So what we decided to do today was go over the elements of the contract with you, and we have, in our opinion, it's a solid contract, and we have every bit of the authority to approve the contract today, and allow them to sign or refuse. But I thought the best use of time today would be to run through this. Some of it is pretty standard contract language, legal stuff, and then other stuff is particular to the relationship between us and the potential owners. So, Mr. Weldon, is that a fair description of how we got where we're at?
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Messmore. If it pleases the commission, what we have today before the commission, and we'll kind of go through this together, and we can answer any questions that you have, and then we would entertain an approval of these documents if it is the pleasure of the commission. In August of last year, we entered into a development agreement with the Rezo Group to make some enhancements and renovations to the historic firehouse building over on Short Street. And the general arrangement was that the city would provide there'd be a total project budget of $440,000. The way that would be accomplished would be that the Rezo Group would put up $30,000 of their money and $50,000 of like-kind engineering services. So they did the engineering and the drawing and the design work for the site. They've also been the construction manager and supervisor on the ground. And then the additional funds would be provided by the Redevelopment Commission, $410,000. that the construction would be complete by March 31st, 2020. Obviously, anticipating a normal season of park events and having that complete before the park season was important. Of course, we have experienced the coronavirus crisis and all of the things that kind of go along with that. So that slowed down, apparently, their construction work. When March 31st came and went without completion, we delivered to them notice that they had breached the contract, and they responded by engaging us and getting into discussions about how to fix that. So in terms of where the project would be, and this is all captured in the first document. You see the shorter one, the first addendum to August 21st, 2019 Economic Development Agreement. What I would propose, and Mr. Messmore would propose that we consider agreeing to, is instead of March 31st, 2020, them being complete with construction, they would divide this up into two phases. Phase one would basically be the entire first floor dining space, the first floor kitchen, all of the structural upgrades like HVAC, roof, the walls, the windows, all of those things inside, and the deck, the outdoor patio, but just the first floor of that, because the final plan had a second floor. All of that work would be complete by June 30th, 2020, and then phase two would be complete by February 28th, 2021. That would just be to finish the second level of the patio, and so that would ensure that they're not doing any work during what will be an abbreviated park season this year. So the addendum is a change or an addition to the original development agreement that changes the dates. Instead of them doing all of the project at once, it splits it up into two phases. They've given us drawings that show, and I'll pass these around, or I'll show these to you guys so you can socially distance, I suppose. These two kind of key documents, what you'll see is the finished project, an outdoor rendering, which shows on the right the second story deck, and then this one on the left would be what they would finish by the end of June. So it's the outdoor patio just without the top floor deck. And so the original development agreement had this rendering attached to it as representing the final product, and so we would amend that to now have two renderings, two phases. This is done by the end of June, this is done by the end of February.
And that's similar to the conversations we had leading up to the last meeting.
Yes, so
Nothing's changed in that element.
The restaurant, who is running the restaurant, in general, the key terms, and this is new for you guys, project that you approved, and it's important to note that we're not asking you to approve this project, say whether you would have done the same thing or not. This is a project that happened with the last administration, and we're just allowing them to change these construction dates, and the addendum would say, we'll change those dates, split it off into phases. Now the breach is cured. We would recall our notice of breach to them. Just generally, the project is if the Rezo Group can contract with Darren Harris, who is the former proprietor of Hebron Grill, and open a restaurant and run that restaurant for 5 consecutive years with no gaps, open 6 days a week, family-friendly, non-smoking, all across the property. Then at the end of 5 years, if they've been able to do that, then we would transfer the property to them. They would own the property. So over those 5 years, they're paying off the $140,000, which is half of the 440 minus the 50 in engineering and the 30 in cash they've already given us. Then they pay the remaining balance of the 140 off in 60 monthly installment payments, and you'll see that reflected in the second document. The second document has a big header on top just because looks like Peyton Manning kind of, but it's so you can record it. The recorder has a rule just about where they can stamp it. So first agreement's just an addendum, says breach is cured, you guys are good. Just get the first phase done by the end of June and the top of the deck done by the end of February. That's all that first document is. Second document is a land installment contract. So this is the document or the vehicle by which they would eventually, if they fulfill all their obligations, own the property. So it's a sale document, but it's also the terms and conditions of their possession of the property during these 5 years. And Darren Harris, it's called HCR Inc., you'll see. Their possession. So it's kind of like a sale document and a lease and a sublease all in one, because we are the Redevelopment Commission will own the property. They're going to be, the Reso Group will be renting it from us and then subleasing it to Darren Harris to have a restaurant. For the first 5 years. For the first 5 years.
Yeah, and this, in the original contract specified that this would be the case, that we would come to this point where the land installment contract would be created. So this is, and it's consistent with the way the original contract was written.
Yeah, the original contract said at some point in the future, we will execute a land sale contract, negotiate one, write it up, execute it. Then once the land sale contract is executed, that's when their obligations would begin to start making those repayments. It was also tied to a certificate of occupancy. So my understanding with the Reso Group is they're working toward finishing the construction, getting the certificate of occupancy, which clears them in terms of safety, construction, health department, lets them open the restaurant, and they get the certificate of occupancy, they sign the land sale contract with us, then they're kind of off and running. So this is a predicate to that. This is a requirement before, or a precursor rather, to them moving on to that next step. So the land sale contract, this is a document that they originally drafted, and we've sent it back and forth a couple times. And it's one that I'm satisfied with, but that doesn't matter as much as you as a group being satisfied with it. Again, remembering that we're not asking you to weigh in it again on the original agreement, but just this land sale portion. So a land sale contract or installment contract is just a way of selling property by virtue of making installments rather than paying for it all up front. I mean, you guys have kind of all heard of land sale contracts and installment contracts. Generally, so the first job for us is just to make sure, okay, do we have all the things that a land sale contract should have, and do we have the things that protect the commission, protect the property, and protect the Reso Group and the restaurant? We want everyone to be successful in this endeavor. So the first thing you'll see is just the title. Again, it's moved down a little bit so we can record it with the county, and then it'll actually be recorded, stacked on top of all the deeds for this property. So if anyone looked at it, they'd say, oh, okay, this property is encumbered, clouded, it's called by a land sale contract, and this is what's happening with the property for the next 5 years. States this agreement lists the parties. First paragraph is sale by installment. The seller, in consideration of the covenants and agreements of the buyer, hereinafter contain, agrees to sell and convey onto the buyer, and the buyer agrees to buy all of that certain real property located at 124 Short Street. So that's the common name. But then you see the rest of this page.
Please don't read that part.
In the beginning of the next page.
And for the record, it's just property descriptions and boundaries, and we're just going to call it, we know which property we're talking about.
Yep. And what you will notice, though, and I won't read it all, but you'll notice it's two different property descriptions, because the first property description is for the firehouse as it was before, independent and standalone before the park was constructed. To the south of that parcel was a vacated alley, an alley that was covered up by the park. So the patio space for the restaurant will now be where the alley used to be, that we've now vacated. So we instead, and at some point, 5 years from now, when this property gets transferred, they'll want to do another survey closing that just has one for the whole thing. But it is sufficient to have two surveys, one for each piece of property. And again, the Redevelopment Commission has already vacated that alley, that part of the park. Two, purchase price and payments. So again, $440,000 total. $220,000 is the price that they're paying for that property, which is calculated in the form of the $50,000 in engineering services, which includes the original design, redesign work, site work, and construction management for the project. They've done all of that. $30,000 in upfront cash, which they've already contributed, and then the final $140,000 would be paid starting the first day of July 2020. Would be first day of July 2020. It would become due with a final payment in July of 2025, which is the maturity date. So there's 60 monthly installment payments.
Got it.
Those are 23, 33, 34 each. Taxes, that was something we talked about quite a bit last year when we were considering this project. The taxes will either be whatever they are. If Reslo gets assessed property tax from the county, he'll just pay that. If he doesn't get assessed property tax, then he'll pay a set amount that's in the development agreement. I think it's $1,850 a year. That was a calculation done based on the average tax bill for that property when it was in private sector before it became a government exempt property. And so that's called a pilot. It's payment in lieu of taxes. So no matter what, they'll be paying taxes that will either go directly to us or go to the county, and then come back to us in part at least. Insurance.
So the county will make that determination,
The county will make that determination based on
how they view this contract, whether they pay the taxes or it's tax exempt for 5 years.
Right. So if it's tax exempt, they'll pay us the pilot. If it's not tax exempt, they'll just pay whatever it is.
Yeah. And obviously, the next section is insurance, and it's
Next
very
section
well
is
covered.
insurance.
We specified that.
Do what?
You gonna read all that? Okay.
I'm gonna summarize.
Okay. I'm just reminding you to summarize some of this, because there's more,
Yeah.
more to be had.
But Brian makes a good point. So the insurance is, we just did this in conjunction with sites. We just called sites and we said, hey, what policies should we require over there? Who should have them, and what amounts and how long? You know, because that's where we always go. We go to sites when we need that kind of information. They're terrific. So you'll just see a few different kinds of policies. Some of them Darren Harris gets, some of them Rezo Group gets, some of them both of them get, but they're all for coverage that would cover any kind of possibility over there, and they name us and the city as additional insured, which means we're covered too, and we get notice of any kind of changes to policy and things like that. So we do that even if we have a music band come. We have policies additional insured, you know, and that just covers parties that could be involved in an ancillary fashion. Indemnification just means anything they do, they're using our property, so if something happens over there, you know, they drop a plate on somebody's foot and they sue them for, you know, plate abuse, then they can't sue us. They can only sue the Rezo Group or the restaurant. So that's just indemnification. They'll protect us from any lawsuits that would arise by them using the property or restaurant group. Buyer's default, and what you'll see later, we can just cover buyer's default. So buyer's default just means that they have to do all the things we said. So they have to have a Darren Harris's restaurant in there for 5 years, open 6 days a week, and they have to pay us the money that they're supposed to pay us, just generally. If they don't do that, then we get the property back, and we get anything that's been improved over there. So we get all the kitchen equipment and restaurant equipment, and you know, they painted the walls, so it's just all of the improvements merged with the property. They wouldn't take it with them if they, for whatever reason, decided they don't want to run the restaurant anymore, or for whatever reason we take the property back. One of the things that's important there that's not listed in this document is listed in the original agreement, which hopefully not, but we may encounter as a group with this administration, is that the agreement says it's got to be 5 years of Darren Harris running the restaurant, but if for whatever reason Darren Harris decides he doesn't want to run the restaurant anymore, or they want to make a change, then they can't just do that. They have to come to us and say, hey, we'd like to have this new restaurant in here. Is this something you would approve? So in that instance, you would approve a replacement. You don't have to approve it. In that way, it kind of protects the idea that the main motivator for this project was all the parties. Lawrenceburg, Redevelopment, Rezo, and Dan Harris. We all kind of did this deal together. So if they want to make any substitutions, they would have to get your approval. You'd have to vote to approve.
How much time do they have to do that?
It's the way it's structured. They have to be open 6 days a week. If they close, they can't be closed for more than 90 days. So let's say, heaven forbid, they did close and 90 days have passed, we would provide them notice, hey, this part of the contract is now in breach. Then they would have to have cured that within those 90 days. If they have a substitute tenant within those 90 days and with enough time to open the restaurant back on day 91, they would have had to come to us, get the approval for the substitute tenant, and reopen. That's why that 90 days.
And they're comfortable with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was
It's a tight window to
Yeah, and as
Yeah.
a couple things here. First of all, it sounds like a lot of stuff, and it really is. But remember, this property is located directly adjacent to the park we just built. So, we're really being careful that we maintain the that property and the restaurant atmosphere for that park. I mean, it sounds a little overbearing, but it's really just because it's so close to such a unique property that we have.
Yeah.
And I think that's worth noting for those folks who may be going, man, that's a lot of rules. Yeah, but that, if it was somewhere else, it wouldn't be quite as stringent.
Well, and exactly, and this is also a joint venture. We've been kind of doing all this together as a team. If this was just a private restaurant and they just wanted to come to the city, they could kind of do whatever they want. But because we're participating really as kind of equal partners, then we can kind of set rules that, again, make us successful and protect us, but also make the Rezo Group and Darren Harris successful. So we want everyone to thrive. And like Mr. Messmore said, we want the park to thrive. We want that park experience to be as amazing as it can be. And we believe strongly that having this restaurant as part of the park essentially really accomplishes that.
And Kevin, to your point, I think if there was, it is a tight window, but if they're being, which they would be, I'm sure, quick to respond and act, that we can work with them through that time period to get, a restaurateur of our approval in place.
I like the protection from our standpoint.
And what we
And if they're comfortable with it, fantastic.
What we contemplated when we were negotiating this, Mr. Schaefer, is that you've got 90 days from closing one restaurant to opening the other, but we all kind of agreed that if that were to happen, then they would have some notice, right? The restaurant wouldn't just close suddenly. So hopefully they would have 90 days of notice. And now that 90 days becomes 180 days. Hey, Darren's going to close in 3 months or 4 months or 6 months. Let's start the process early. So the 90 days really would only become a tight window if an emergency occurred, which again, we really don't anticipate that. We hope that doesn't happen, but we would deal with that if it came up. So that's the kind of key to this buyer's default section. Assignment, they can't assign this deal to somebody else. Possession of the property, this is just, again, as we discussed, this document contemplates the eventual sale, but also contemplates what happens for the next 5 years. It's our property, leased to the Rezo, subleased to Darren Harris Restaurant Group. And they have a lease agreement with the Darren Harris Restaurant Group that we've reviewed and we're okay with. Inspection, of course, we would have the right to inspect that property. It's our property, but with reasonable terms and just kind of the terms you would see in a normal lease agreement. Maintenance and repairs, the Rezo Group would be responsible for all maintenance and repairs and keeping the property safe and looking good during these 5 years. Special provisions really speak to, the first one speaks to the fact that with a land sale contract, sometimes and it's really contemplating individuals, trying to buy a house, family who can't really afford it, buying a house on a land sale contract. They make 59 out of the 60 payments. Generically, traditionally, the way it would work is they would just get kicked out, and they wouldn't get any of their money back, and they wouldn't have the property, and the person who did the land sale contract would keep all 59 payments. So that's not really fair. So there's been some legislation and some bills, even as recently as last year, to kind of address that, make it more fair, again, for individuals. We wanted to make it clear with the Rezo group, and they've agreed, and we've agreed that that doesn't really happen here. If they did make 59 payments and then just didn't make that 60th payment for whatever reason, they don't get to take anything with them. We don't have to give them more money. It's just our property again. So that's just part of this is called a land sale contract, but it's a little different because it's not just a family buying a house. So we clarified that numerous times in both the development agreement and here. They're waiving their right to any of that repayment or any property interest they might have. Properties as is, that's always something you just see generically, but they have inspected it and they're comfortable with that. We've given them permission to rent that or sublease that to HCR, and that we are okay with a restaurant being run over there. And then Part E, right of first refusal. So this is if they're successful, and we plan on them being very successful on that 5th year, we transfer the property to them by what's called a warranty deed, and the property would then belong to them free and clear. But if at any time 5 years after that they wanted to sell the property, if they had an offer for someone to buy it and they wanted to get rid of it, then we would be able to buy it instead of them. So if another 2 years after that, 7 years from now, if a group approached the Rezos, they would come to us and say, hey, if someone wants to buy this, we want to sell it, then we would have the first right of first refusal to purchase it back. We would do that by statute by getting the average of 2 fair commercial appraisals that a professional would do to determine the fair market value. Take them both, average them out. That's what we would pay the Rezo group, making sure they get a fair value for that property. One of the reasons this is important and good is because, again, we're investing $220,000 in this property. So in year 5, they're getting the building with the investment they've made, but we have made a big investment too. Again, we're doing this as partners. So we want just for 5 years after that, hey, if they want to sell it, they don't want to run the restaurant anymore, sell it back to us. We'll take it back. So that's the right of first refusal. Liens or encumbrances just means you can't borrow money against the property or put any liens or any kind of mortgages on it. Seller's remedies, of course, if the buyer defaults in any way, then in this agreement, if they break this agreement or the development agreement, then we have the right to foreclose and take the property back. Enforcement by the buyer, if we don't do what we're supposed to, same thing. And we have to follow the contract just like they do. Place payment. And notices, that's just make the monthly payments. Time is of the essence. That just sets out when their payments are due. They're due the first of the month. If they're more than 10 days late, you get a $50 late fee, and they'll make those payments monthly. Binding effect, entire agreement. This is the entire agreement. There aren't any
At what
other
point are they in breach if they miss a payment?
If they miss a payment,
They have 30 days?
So hypothetically, they would be, if it's day 11, we would mail them notice. And with any provision, they have 30 days to cure. So any kind of breach, which include that. So if they were
Okay.
11
Fair
days
enough.
late,
Fair enough.
we didn't mail notice of breach, they have 30 days to cure. So really, it's 40 days. And then if they didn't pay after that, that breach would lock in. That's a good question. Warranty deed, that's just, instead of a quitclaim deed, it's a warranty deed. So we're just, at closing, a title company would do either title insurance or inspection that would say, yeah, this property doesn't have any problems or issues that would trip anyone up later. Recording, we'll record this with the county. Broker commissions, no real estate brokers are involved. Severance clause just means that if for whatever reason any parts of this were invalidated, the other parts still are not invalidated. They still are okay. And then finally, choice of law and venue. If there's any dispute about this agreement or any of the other agreements, it has to be litigated here in Dearborn County, Indiana. So that's and like Mr. Messmore said, it's a new document, but the original development agreement said, hey, in the future, basically when construction's done, we'll get back to the table and we'll hammer out this land sale contract. That's what we're doing, and then the other document is just saying, hey, we get it. It was a COVID epidemic. You couldn't finish on March 31st, so we'll give you these new dates with new phases, and then your breach is cured. You're no longer in breach.
Anybody have any additional questions about either of these documents this evening?
I think it's important for me just to point out that, because I know it and I think it's fair that the resos have an issue with right of first refusal. And you as the board should be aware of that before you make a vote.
What is it?
The right of first refusal?
Yeah. So, and they're, again, as good as the deal has been, their concern is that the average, they could get a better offer than the averages to the appraisals. And that's, I need to be upfront and let you know that's their concern.
Yeah, so I guess there's a bunch of ways to do this. Obviously, you guys came here on a Friday, you've given your time, and we really appreciate that, first of all, because we called you at the last minute. We wanted to get this done. You've driven past the place. They're doing great. It looks beautiful. They want to get open. Darren Ayers wants to get open. Everyone wants to get this done. I was always a little concerned that there was something still to do. In August when we signed the contract saying, well, in the future we'll do a new agreement. I was always worried about that because that could obviously cause a delay if everyone doesn't agree. Like Mr. Messmore said, they feel like the right of first refusal is okay, but they just want it to be for whatever price, and that's typical. What you'll see with right of first refusal in private settings would be just what's called a bona fide offer. If they can just show it's a real offer, meaning they've gotten a loan or, they put money in escrow, that we would just pay that amount no matter what it is. The problem with that, and this is completely up to you as a board, and you can do this any way you want. Again, we're trying to get this done for their benefit, really, right? We're trying to do things quickly so that we don't get in their way. We want them to open. The problem with that, from my perspective, just is, as a redevelopment commission, we should just pay the average of 2 appraisals for property. That's what the statute says. That's what the law says. That's the fair thing. There are certain instances where we don't have to do that, but that's not really this kind of situation.
So Dale, is this our language or is this theirs?
It's both. This is drafts that have come back.
Just E, the right of first refusal.
So the right of first refusal is their language, except I took out bona fide offer and put in average of 2 appraisals.
So the copy I see says bona fide offer.
Okay. Then we would just have to make that correction if it does say that.
If at any time the buyer shall receive a bona fide offer.
Okay,
On the
I'm sorry.
first-
So if they receive a bona fide offer, then we would purchase for not the bona fide offer amount, for the average of 2 appraisals. What they would like it to say is, if they receive a bona fide offer, we pay that bona fide offer amount no matter what it is. And so what I would recommend would be that it says, if they receive a bona fide offer, that we pay the average of 2 appraisals. So they would come to us and they'd say, hey, someone's offered the property, they really want to buy it, they've gotten a loan or whatever,
Okay.
makes it bona fide. But we have to give you the first right to buy it. We want to sell it. Will you buy it? Yes, we want to. Let's go get some appraisals and see what those numbers come back to.
Or no, we don't.
Or no, we don't. And we don't have to. This is a big what if,
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it is.
I understand that, like Brian said, the Reso group would like it to just say bona fide. I think by law, our biggest responsibility would be to make it say bona fide, average of 2 appraisals, because my personal reasoning is, one, the statute says that, and that's just an objective fact. But 2, if 7 years from now it's up for sale and we want to buy it back, getting two fair commercial appraisals is going to give you the fairest value of that property. I can't imagine a scenario where someone would say, well, that property appraised for 500,000, but I want to give you 600,000 for it. I don't know why a bank would loan that amount. I don't know why that would be a problem in the future.
The tough part is that building is a unicorn in this town.
Yeah.
There are no comps to that building. So I feel it'd be difficult for an appraiser to even get a fair value on that property. Ultimately, I think it comes down to what somebody's willing to pay.
Yeah, that's fair. And we could.
So I could see where a restaurateur would pay more than a developer or a real estate investor, because they want that property, they want that location, they have a concept, and it would be worth more to them.
No, that's fair. And
Is there a way to meet in the middle?
well,
Is there a way to more clearly define bona fide?
bona fide just means it's any number, but they can just prove that it's real, like they've gotten the loan.
How do you prove that it's real, though?
What that means is, Brian and I had right of first refusal just for his house. And I said, hey, my cousin will give me $1 million for it. You got to match that. Well, he would say, well, you got to prove that that's a real offer. And I would do that by saying, well, he's got the loan or he's put money in escrow. That's what it means. It's just the proof so that you can't just say.
Could we attach a requirement that, okay, if that's a real offer, then you've got to close on this within 90 days?
It spells that out. So if we agree, it does spell out, say, 30 days and then 45 days.
No, to offer to throw them a bone and say, okay, if this is a real offer, if somebody wants to give you 800,000 for it, the two appraisals is 600. You have 90 days to sell it to them, or we buy it for the average of two appraisals.
Yeah, I mean, really what we want to avoid is paying.
Deals fall through all the time, so yeah, a buyer may want to buy it, but something happens.
And they may not want to sell it if that deal falls through either.
Right.
If, like you said, somebody could buy it for 800,000, but the average two appraisals is 600. Go back, and say, okay, well, since we've got an interest in it or had an interest in it, and we want to recoup our profits as well, split it 50-50 instead of us buying it for 600. You're still going to come out $100,000 ahead.
And then let them sell it, but they would give
Let
us
them
some of
sell
those
it, and they're only
proceeds.
going to keep 50% of that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a meeting in the middle type of thing.
Yeah, they're not. I don't think they're going to go for that because they've already met their end of the deal. We're 7 years down the road now.
Right, but we still got the right of first refusal, and they don't like this. They don't like this language here. That we've got. So I mean, I'm just trying to meet them in the middle there.
Then it, I think there's, complications to.
If somebody, I think there's an issue with what they want too. If somebody says they're going to give $1 million for the building, that doesn't mean that we just swoop in and buy it for $1 million.
No, I mean, why? Well, I mean, we'd have to decide. I mean, the board setting here would have to decide if they were interested at all to begin with.
Yeah, that's the first.
I think we're talking about, and believe me, we've beaten our heads on the table trying to get through this, and these are what-if situations that may never, ever, ever, ever happen. So what's the simplest, fundamental way to move forward?
But Del, I do agree with you that we've got a lot invested in this, and we don't want to see it in 7 years get into the wrong hands.
Yeah,
Somehow, if there's a way that we can prevent that.
Yeah, I think hoping for the best, planning for the worst type of thing, which is kind of what my only job here is the nightmare scenario would be the day after we transfer it to them, they sell it to somebody for a ton of money, and then we look back, right?
No,
And they've gotten all the equity from our money. So and I don't think that would ever happen, but that's why.
Well, but that's
I'm okay with that. That's kind of free market. They're taking a risk on.
Okay.
I feel like they're taking a risk today and over the next 5 years, and that's the reward for the risk. To me, the bigger risk is they sell it to somebody that puts in something that we really don't want right there next to the park.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the very reason why instead of transferring the property to them up front, we have this 5-year window because, and you're exactly right, Mr. Schaefer. We wanted to strike a balance between, and we've got other properties.
Well, maybe that's a way to approach it maybe that's the way to approach it.
Well, we wanted to strike a balance between keeping the property, giving the property away, and having a window, and we settled on 5 years where we feel like if this can be the right thing, the thing we really like for 5 years, then it's probably gonna be okay. And, that's a 10, 20, 30, 50-year endeavor. We can't watch the property forever, but this 5-year window gives us that ability. And then the 5-year right of first refusal on the end of that, now we've got 10 years, we can kind of watch our baby grow, right? I mean, we're keeping an eye on it because we love it and we love the park, especially for this one, because the park makes it even more important. It's in the park. And I like that. I think that, so, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Messmore, so the total project's 440. Our contribution was 410, but they're paying 140 of that back. Is that right or wrong?
Well, the 410 comes from the fact that they put 30 in up front.
Yes.
Right, so that takes the 440 down to 410, then they pay back, and that money's been used for construction, for
Yeah.
improving our building. But then they would pay back the 140 over the 5 years, and then they would transfer the property, they would owe no more.
Right, and then the property.
50,000 in engineering.
Yeah, so it's 220, 220.
So at the end, then we would have contributed 270, and they would have contributed.
Plus the cost of the building, we bought it.
Plus the cost of the
Right.
building. So if there would be a way, I mean, I like what everyone's saying here. If there'd be a way to just recover some of our money, but let them sell it for that higher value, or to even just cross that bridge when we get there.
But I don't think, it's not a money issue at that point. It's the use of the property that's
Yeah.
the concern.
Yeah, so if it's the use of the property, then we want to be able to choose. So this puts us in that position, because just because we have the right of first refusal doesn't mean we have to execute it. So let's say, again, hoping for the best, playing for the worst. Now they got an $800,000 deal, but it's for, Purdue shirts. And we all hate Purdue. But as an example. Then we get to say, okay, we're gonna buy this property just because we don't want this bad business to go, and then we'll flip it into another business. So then it, like Mr. Messmer said, it's not about the money at all. It's only about having the option to have a say in who gets it, even after the transfer.
But then where does the monetary piece come in? So if the Purdue guy, we don't like the Purdue guy,
Yeah.
but he's gonna offer 800 because he got a good education and.
That's right.
I mean-
He got a way better degree.
Right.
I mean,
so-
can you-
So he's in that position. How much do we pay for it? He wants to buy it for 800.
The appraisals are 600.
Right.
We can't pay 800, I mean, unless we really.
So we've got to let it go to the Purdue guy.
Yeah, as it stands
Then
right
we don't
now.
have.
Pretty much that'd be that.
As it stands
That'd
right
be a good
now,
business.
if that scenario happened, then it would be the inverse. We would say, okay, we have the right to buy this, but we're not gonna exercise it. We're happy, we're satisfied with who you're selling it to. So we've just gotten a say. We didn't buy the building back, but they just had to ask us about it.
We just put a few words in there that say you need to sell it to a comparable business.
Needs to be something like that.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm tracking with you hard on that one. I think
Can't be a Purdue T-shirt shop.
well, it has to fit the premise, family style restaurant.
We
Just-
could use the same parameters really that we would have to use if we, God forbid, had to replace the restaurant. So kind of
Yeah.
the same things. It'd have to be family friendly, non-smoking.
For 5 years.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
are we talking, 10 now?
No, we're just
Just
talking
five.
about
Just
after.
10 total, but just the
10
5
total.
after we change.
5 after.
Yeah.
The right of first refusal, we get to either approve who they're selling it to, or how would that work? Or buy it back for the average of 2 appraisals, and we can't unreasonably withhold that. So if they come to us and it's comparable by objective standards, not just because I don't like Purdue, then we have to let them sell it.
But they can't turn it into a
We can't turn it
tire
into
shop.
Purdue Mart.
I can't put garage doors up and change oil in there.
Yeah.
Well, and another way to handle that would be, we could, instead of having a right of first refusal, we could have a restrictive covenant that we draft that runs with the property forever, that says only a restaurant can be, nothing else. We can draft that really kind of however we like. So we could make this modification that we just have a bona fide right of first refusal, and we are going to do a restrictive covenant that says it's only a restaurant. So we could kind of accomplish everything you guys are saying.
If Rezo agrees and signs, right?
Well, yeah, you know, and that's why I was getting back to it. Just kind of mechanically, I think the only thing we can do is just approve something we are happy with, and then they can sign it or not. You know, instead of all being in the same room arguing, this is actually better.
This is good. This is
We're
good.
looking out for them, like, and you guys are speaking up for them as much as you are for us. So I would say it's right of first refusal,
Bona
subject
fide right of
to-
first refusal, right? That's what you said?
Yeah, poor Kelly's gotta take notes. So it would say that we have
That's
a right
why,
of first
that's why I told you not to read all that stuff.
We have a right of first refusal so long as, we have a right of first refusal unless the successor purchaser, meets the requirement of having a family-friendly, non-smoking business to the satisfaction of the commission, which shall not be unreasonably withheld, or else we purchase it for the average of 2 appraisals.
If they really went out.
So if they come to us and it's 800, and they're objectively not terrible, essentially, can't unreasonably withheld, then we have to release our right of first refusal. If it's objectively bad, like a tire store, then we get to buy it and at the average of 2 appraisals. Now we've satisfied our mission, they've satisfied
And
their
in theory,
mission.
they should be happy with the fair market value, which the appraisals should be fair market value if they really need out.
Yeah,
They're selling out, they're moving to Florida, they want the cash. We're gonna buy it for fair market value.
Yeah, I really think this is probably a problem that's not a problem. I think if that ever happens.
Oh, I agree. We're talking about it.
But it's always worth the exercise. So we'll
I
add, if
don't-
we add those things, yeah.
I personally don't like restricting it to a restaurant forever,
Okay.
because the
Never
park
know.
might not be there forever. So,
Why couldn't we
Additional
say,
5 years.
can we
why
just
couldn't we
say,
say it'd be supplementary to the park?
Okay,
so long as the
Whatever, I
park
mean, as
exists?
long as it's complimentary to the park.
and we can
If
say
you
what,
want
And who
Whatever you
decides
want to put in
that?
there.
So they sell it once, and then they sell it again, and then they sell it again.
yeah, the covenant would run with the land. And so we could say what it can't be, like it can't be, you know,
A go-go bar?
right, I'm trying not to be inappropriate. We're all thinking the same, we're all thinking the same thing that it can't be, but that's what you see with property. You do a subdivision, you put in the covenant, it can't be a strip club, it can't be a meth lab, it can't be, you know,
Would have thought there
whatever.
would have been e-cigs though.
Yeah,
Can't be an
exactly.
e-cig store.
So we could do it for a
Can we
set
just say it
period.
needs to be a family-friendly complement to the park?
Okay.
Yeah.
We could do it for a period of 10 years.
Another 5 years or whatever.
I mean, that seems
Another
very
5
fair.
years or 10 years?
If you guys are comfortable with that.
Or forever?
No, not forever. I mean, there has, I mean, we're government. We can't do something forever. I mean, there has to be some reasonable, another 5 years, that's 10 years into the future that we've.
I mean, if we want to have all
and
this
so if
control
this-
over
if
it,
we
we
create
should
this,
just.
if we create what we should at the park, this should be the highest and best use for that property.
It should, yeah.
If the vision is realized for what goes around the park and what the park becomes.
Exactly. The market will take care of a lot of these
It
problems.
should, and the next person that wants that building should be,
So maybe absent the covenant, we just have the option to purchase it if the next buyer doesn't objectively fit with that scheme. But that's just for 5 years after the sale. Then after that, it's just.
and that
agree.
protects our investment.
Yep. And that's, now we're looking at a 10-year window. And after 10 years, I would have to think the market would take care of it. And now you got this beautiful park, no one's gonna put something in there that wouldn't complement the park. And we've compromised with Reza without him even having to be here. Look at that. That's pretty good. So
what's the plan? You gonna try to get this rewritten and have it to the next redevelopment meeting?
I would just ask for a vote to approve these documents with that change. And you guys could vote to do that. I'll add that
The
sentence,
language.
and then we'll circulate it and sign it. Or we can have another meeting. It's really up to you guys. I want to use your time and be fair to
The
you.
next meeting is when?
Yeah, it's a waste.
I mean,
No, we need to.
do what you want to do. I mean, I personally, you know, we've talked about this. I think we all understand what we're saying. If I would prefer to move forward, you know, have him fix the document and get it. I prefer not to wait.
You don't want to slow it down?
I don't want to slow it
No.
down.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve with the changes that Dell recommended.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time on a Friday. It really means a lot.
Need a separate motion for the addendum?
Because that one's good to go, right?
Yeah,
Like, the addendum's fine.
yeah, let's do that. Let's have a motion for the addendum.
I got a motion to approve the addendum.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. If that's,
So are we getting that, does that one have the signature lines, the addendum?
Yeah.
Dell? So then, before you guys leave, let's get that one at least signed. Please.
all right. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Lenny, Brian, anybody?
Don't matter.
Second. We'll do Lenny motion and Brian second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Hey, Dell.
Good. Remember, get the thing a-moving. How come?
Oh, no, I'm saying, okay.
Every time I hear I gotta sign something, it
I
costs
just
money.
didn't know if,
Well, they're
where it says Brian?